German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was recently in New Delhi for the 7th Intergovernmental Consultation and the 18th Asia-Pacific Conference of German Business. He was once again accompanied by a significant business delegation, obviously because he came for the other conference as well. And for the last few days, the visit highlighted the growing importance of Germany-India relations. Vice-Chancellor Robert Habeck preceded Scholz. He came to India a few days in advance, focusing on preparations for the consultations and promoting a simpler free trade agreement between India and the European Union. It is rare that India captures such attention from Germany, and it does reflect a broader consensus among Europe's major powers about managing diverse global issues, such as differing views on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. While the West, and here I mean the broader West, may not agree with India's perspective on Ukraine, there is a growing acceptance on India's neutral stance and a continuing engagement of Russia. India, on its part as well, has worked diligently on the international stage, balancing its active neutrality and mediation efforts, while also positioning itself as a key player in the eventual reconstruction of Ukraine. So, this ability to bridge political differences while building on common ground demonstrates the West's long-term strategy in the region. For India, this moment signifies shedding legacy issues, asserting strategic clarity, and capitalizing on its growing global influence. But what really caught everyone's attention this time was a German document called India in Focus. A major development preceding Scholz's visit was the release of this document, which is India in Focus. It is a 32-page roadmap for enhancing bilateral relations between Germany and India. This document outlines priorities in foreign, security, and trade relations. Notably, this is not the first country-specific strategy from Germany. In July 2023, Germany released a national China strategy, which aimed to reduce dependencies on China. In contrast, the India's document emphasizes increasing multidimensional engagement, illustrating Germany's evolving approach to its key partners, India being one of them. Now, this key document comes 3 years after Germany's Indo-Pacific strategy, which sought to increase its presence in the Indo-Pacific region. Therefore, India in Focus, the document, underscores a renewed prioritization of India. But where do our bilateral relations stand today? How multidimensional are they? Germany is already India's largest trading partner in Europe and has been pushing for overcoming hurdles in the ongoing negotiations for an EU-India FTA. Now, as you know, the current FTA talks revolve around 3 verticals. It's on free trade and services, a bilateral investment treaty, and a geographical indicators agreement. However, challenges persist, particularly around the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism or CBAM, and sensitive issues like agriculture on India's side. Now, Germany is pushing for India-EU FTA, and its approach has been to focus more on industry than on agriculture, and it aims for practical solutions to move the FTA forward. But the problem is there's limited appetite within the EU for a piecemeal FTA because Brussels has been pushing for a comprehensive deal. And Brussels' regulatory rigor has often acted as a tariff barrier for Indian industries. Germany's advocacy for the FTA aligns with broader European efforts, but tangible progress has been slow because even when Germany remains the biggest economy in Europe, the FTA, the EU-wide FTA, has a different technical process to be passed. But there's also some good news. The potential for an EU-India summit in early 2025, which is next year, alongside a possible India-centric reorientation of the European Commission under Ursula von der Leyen, may create a more favorable environment for these negotiations. But like I said, structural issues in Brussels may continue to impede swift progress. Now, what about the investment flows? Now, Germany has been considering, at least it talks about it, redirecting more of its own investments into India. Now, while there is consistent rhetoric about diversifying away from China, in practice, German firms such as Mercedes, Volkswagen and BASF continue to invest heavily in China, and these investments have reached an all-time high in the first quarter of 2024 itself. But despite this, many small and medium-sized enterprises, the SMEs in Germany, have gradually reduced their investments in China, signaling a nuanced picture of German economic ties, which remain dependent but are seeking more de-risking from China. Now, India has struggled to fully capitalize on diversification away from China under what is referred to as the China Plus One, because much of that diverted investment is going to Singapore and Vietnam. There are factors like complex regulations and a challenging investment ecosystem, and these factors have hampered India's ability to attract these investments. Now, while the Modi government has been working on them, but it remains a work in progress and tangible results would take some time. The recently concluded intergovernmental consultations, a key mechanism between India and Germany, actually provided an opportunity to address these challenges. And if there is any progress made, we'll soon come to know. Now, let's discuss a few points on how India has been keen on developing more strategic gateways into Europe. Now, Germany must also push India's role in optimizing port and infrastructure development in Europe and thereby creating more strategic gateways for India into Europe. Investment is not a one-way traffic. Indian businesses are increasingly investing abroad, and as China's influence in Eastern and Central Europe, which is CEE, now how can India fill this gap? India can invest in key European ports like Thessaloniki in Greece and Trieste in Italy, and India could establish strategic gateways into Europe, enhancing trade and investment links with multimodal connectivity projects like the 3Cs initiative that connects 14 CEE countries. And by the way, not many know that these 14 CEE economies represent more than 1 trillion worth of GDP among themselves. So India's growing strategic partnerships with countries like Greece and Poland can facilitate these efforts. Building resilient port infrastructure in regions where China has limited dominance could unlock significant trade potential as well. Indian exports to Europe currently pass through congested ports like Hamburg and Rotterdam in Germany, and diversifying entry points would benefit both India and Europe. However, India must engage this region in consultation with Brussels and ideally supported by the big economies of the West. And these developments should continue even as the West Asian part of the IMEC corridor remains mired in violence and instability. The point is that eventually, whenever the time is right, this part of geography could then be connected with other projects in Europe with Indian investments. Now, there is also a vertical of defense cooperation which has been developing very steadily. I'll try to explain that in short. In defense, India and Germany have made significant strides. Now, unlike France, which has a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific and is also India's major strategic partner in defense, Germany has historically been a reluctant defense partner to India. However, these dynamics or the reluctance has shifted since Russia's invasion of Ukraine happened, with Germany now focused on the Indo-Pacific in a much more visible way, and its naval deployments are visibly increasing in a non-offensive manner. In 2022, for instance, Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius visited India to discuss reducing India's reliance on Russian arms, signaling a shift in Germany's defense posture. ThyssenKrupp, a German defense firm, is now a key contender for a major submarine project in India, powered with what is known as the Air Independent Propulsion Technology or AIP technology, partnering with Muscat Talk. Now, this is a major significant partnership on submarines. Several other projects also seem promising. But the thing to remember is that the two sides must develop G2G mechanism, which is government-to-government mechanism, to minimize the role of governmental regulation and oversight that has often been blamed in the past. And it's not just the past, it actually continues to be a problem even now. The Federal Office for Economic Affairs and Export Control, BAFA, as a central licensing authority, is responsible for administrative implementation of the federal government's export control policy. Now, the stifling role of BAFA as a complex export control system needs to be made more flexible and resilient if the G2G communications are meant to fly. Now, in this regard, the India-Germany equation lags behind the equations set in, say, India-France ties or India-US ties in a comparative manner. But All this talk makes little sense unless we take a stock of Germany's economic health, which is hardly promising. And that's a reality bite. So despite the good talk, Germany faces significant economic challenges. Often it is referred to as the sick man of Europe. It is grappling with consequences of underinvestment in its economy during prosperous times. The country has lagged behind in areas such as digitalization, infrastructure, and innovation. Germany has also made a bad decision to phase out nuclear energy without a solid alternative plan. And this has left the country vulnerable as it pushes for a green transition amidst all the demands of the Russian war. Supporting Ukraine and diversifying energy sources amid the ubiquitous uncertainty all over Europe could have been managed better had timely investment over the years addressed other structural problems in time. Germany's economic struggles were highlighted by a second consecutive year of recession in 2024, with a 0.2 contraction expected by the end of the year. The country has lost much of its international competitiveness and private consumption remains stagnant. German investment ratio has been the lowest in Europe in digitalization and infrastructure as well as in innovation. Its economic decline is particularly evident when compared to other major economies like the United States or China, Japan, and even India, which have all shown positive growth. In contrast, Germany has seen a structural decline in its economic model, with the country dropping from being one of the top 5 competitive economies until about a decade ago to now dropping to a 20th place globally. Berlin's challenges are rooted in its reluctance to embrace change and its risk-averse mindset. While other countries have adapted to shifting global trends, Germany's slow response has cost it its competitive edge. So what can Germany then do? In my opinion, one potential solution to Berlin's economic woes is to increase government debt by loosening the debt brake limits and invest in areas such as infrastructure and innovation. But the problem is that this remains a contentious legal issue within Germany. Olaf Scholz's administration tried it last year and the Supreme Court did not allow them to go ahead with it. Nonetheless, recent strategies from the German government, including the Indo-Pacific strategy, national security strategy, national China strategy, and a renewed focus on India, indicate that Germany is beginning to rethink its approach to global challenges and is finally trying to change. These strategies represent Germany's response to a rapidly changing world and particularly a fast-evolving Europe. Implementing these plans effectively and in a timely manner will be critical for Germany to regain its competitiveness and strengthen its ties with key partners like India. For India, closer cooperation with Germany, especially in defense, trade, and infrastructure, and not to forget German appetite for India's skilled workforce. Now, all of this offers an opportunity to further establish itself as a global player. By leveraging strategic investments in Europe and capitalizing on the current geopolitical moment, India can enhance its standing on the world stage and build a more resilient and a more multidimensional partnership with Germany and with the larger Europe. I will be back to discuss how much of the current enthusiasm oozing from documents such as India in Focus and the joint statement after the bilateral meeting and the larger German willingness to engage India sees the light of the day. The link to my column is provided in the description box for more references. Tell me what you think about the video and stay tuned.